let's try to make some arrows together. So this time what we're going to do is I'm going to be working on some arrows. So I've got a couple of arrows. I've got these two arrows right here that I've bought. These are just like cheap Walmart, like $4 or $5 a piece. And then this one right here, this white one, is one that my cousin shot, and he got it stuck into a tree. And if I can make it work, if I can cut it down far enough, because this is the size of the arrow that I draw, there should be plenty of meat left here, but you can see this carbon fiber is completely exploded. So I'm going to try to cut that down just to reuse the arrow. I think it'd kind of be fun that it's his arrow, and I'm going to reuse it. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to cut these down to the size that I shoot, to the length that I shoot. I'm going to try to show you how to do it. You can do it on your own. If you're looking at getting into like archery competitions where you're worried about the weight on everything, you probably don't want to watch this one. But I do know how to do it. I've done it with all of mine that I've shot, and they've all held up very well. So let's just start going with that, I guess. So if you're new to archery, or if you're starting to get into archery, it can be a really fun sport. Just doing it in your backyard. You don't have to go hunt or do anything. It's also a very expensive sport. By the time you start buying like a decent bow and everything, one thing that I would recommend, I've got this pack right here, and it's just a Primos archery pack. So you get this one big pocket, and then there's a bunch of pockets on the inside where you can keep other stuff. I've had this one for about 6 or 7 years, maybe longer than that. But it is a good place to go ahead and keep all your stuff, so it's easy to find, because a lot of this stuff, like your nocks, inserts, just any other tools that you need, you set them down and then you're just like, where did I put all of that? If you get a little bag or like a small little toolbox or something from Harbor Freight, keep all that stuff in there. It should keep you going all right. So when you're cutting carbon fiber, you have to be really careful, because these ends right here, they will get stuck in your fingers and you're not getting them back out. I mean, they can get in your eyes, so you really do have to be careful when you're cutting carbon fiber. So you want to make sure you're wearing safety glasses. You're supposed to cut it up to about, I think, right at like 5,000 RPMs. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be using this because it's what I've got. There is a specific tool for cutting your arrows, and I don't have that, and I seriously doubt that I'm going to be getting that. So I'm just going to use what I got and then take it from there. But I'll try to show you the right way to try to square them up. There's some really good videos where the guys that are really concerned about your weights, and they go into super in-depth stuff. And I'm not. I mean, we're going to put an insert in. I'm not that concerned about my weight. Most of my arrows are the same weight class, so I'm fine. Whatever I cut off, they're generally going to be somewhat pretty close. So I'm not that concerned about it. And I'm not entering any archery competitions. So it's more, for me, is more the fun of doing it. It can be really fun to build arrows. Just the whole archery experience in itself can be fun to do on your own. And you can learn a lot of stuff, and it's just fun. You just get to play around and have fun. So first thing I think I'm going to do is, this arrow was stuck in a tree, like I said. But it's been up there for about 2 years. And I could never find it. And I finally found it earlier, just like a month or so ago. So the fletching here is obviously bad, so I'm going to have to replace the fletching. These that I got from Walmart, I mean, the fletching's fine on them, so I'm just going to leave them. And these are more for, if I'm out hunting and a coyote comes walking up or something, and that's what I want to use those arrows for. I don't want to use the arrows that I've built specifically for, for deer, because they've got lighted nocks. These are, by the time I put my arrow tip on there, they're close to being like a $30 arrow just in itself. But with these, whenever I did get them, I did strip them down. I did replace all the fletchings on there on my own. So I think we're going to start with this one. And I'm just going to go ahead and pull the fletchings off and kind of show you how that's done. There's a special tool for pulling fletchings off. You could do it with something else. This is just made by Bohning. I mean, you could just do it with a razor blade. That's essentially all it is. But there's a tiny little notch in there. I don't know if you can really see it, but where the arrow can glide on there really easily. So I'm going to cut the fletching off. We're going to have to square up the end to put the insert in, and I'll try to show you why if I don't make a good straight cut with the Dremel. So let me go ahead and get this thing locked down a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Okay, so that arrow is cut. Now we're going to have to square up this end right here. Let's see if you can see that. We're going to have to square that up, because if I can slip an insert in here with one hand, can I? Maybe? Yay. So if you can see this, you can see that the arrow insert itself is sitting higher up just because the cut was not 100% perfectly straight, which is fine. I mean, I honestly made the cut a little bit crappier than what I normally would have on purpose. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and strip this fletching off of here, and I'll try to push it away. You can see this is just cuts that thing clean off. So there's still going to be a little bit of cleanup to do, but I can do that later before I put the new fletchings on. Okay, so now we got all the fletching off. There's still a little bit of glue on there, but I'll take that off here in a little bit. So I do like to look at this back end too, where the knock actually goes. So you should be able to fit an insert into there. Again, one-handed. But if I can fit an insert into there, so you might be able to see on this one just how flush it sits. So now we know this back end is good, so I'm not going to worry anymore about that. But this tool, I move these arrows. This tool right here is it's a fletched arrow squaring tool. So what it's going to do is square up that one end that's not perfectly flush. You basically just sit it in here and you spin it for 3 days. Now I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, again, if you're doing this for competitions and stuff, don't do this. But you can what you can do is you can chuck it in your drill. You want to make sure you don't tighten it down very tight, because you don't want it to break this back end right here, because then you're pretty much done and over with. So I'm just going to square up this end using the drill, just spinning it, and it works pretty well. So when you do it, you can actually hear, you just want to keep a little bit of pressure down on it, and just a little bit of pressure forward. Let this, because there's just a piece of sandpaper back here, so let it do the work. So then once you feel like it, the noise will kind of change, the sound will kind of change for you. Then you can kind of take a look at it, and that's pretty close, but I think I'm going to go just a little bit farther. So I clean up the little carbon dust. So hopefully you can kind of see that, but it is sitting, it's sitting perfectly flush. And this tool itself was only, I want to say it was about $30. I think about 30 bucks. And it's, I mean, it's a pretty decent tool. There's other tools that are a lot more expensive. But this one's this one's pretty stout. It's got 2 holes in it to where you can screw it down on your bench if you wanted to. But it does a really good job, so I'm actually pretty happy with that tool. So, alright, now we got our arrow cut, got our insert in, which I am going to glue that in just because I always do. And then we're going to have to put a knock on. And I don't know that I'm going to do, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we still got these other 2 arrows. So when if you're ever putting your arrow like in a vise like this, you can wrap it up. I just try not to put this, you just really don't cinch it down. It's just barely kind of sitting on there. Because I'm not putting that much downward force. And when I'm measuring my arrows, you can do them with obviously with a measuring tape. But I'm measuring it without this knock on there. So I'm just lining the back of the shaft up. Because these are not like going to be like the best arrows on the planet. I just want them, I want the draw length to be right. Because when they're in your quiver, here's my quiver, all my arrows come down to here, my bow comes down to about here. With these other ones in here, it extends quite a bit farther. So if I go to sit my bow down, I'm always digging the nocks in. And I don't like that. It bugs me. So, alright, we got that one marked. So now we're going to mark this one. Alright. So now both the arrows are marked up. Right here I put a little tiki mark. So one of the things, if you're going to use something like a Dremel to do this, you can see where this little back part right here, when you're trying to cut, then you're going to be cutting down at an angle. So you can come through in here and just take off little pieces until you get back to where you want to go. And I think that's how I'm going to do it this time. Safety third. So that one's done. So now we're going to do the same thing with these, just checking them with the insert. You see, I cut those a lot better. I'm still going to throw them in the squaring tool just to make sure, but the other one was kind of done intentionally, so you could see where it didn't sit right. But even this one is pretty close to being perfect. So you can still knock these in your or chuck them in your chuck, but you got to be careful with the fletchings because I'm not replacing these fletchings. So you just want to make sure you stay down a little bit from your fletching there. So I'm going to call that one good. I'm not going to check it. I'm just going to say it's good. And same thing with this one. I'm just going to say they're good. So you just clean up a little bit of the dust. Make sure it's not splintered or anything anywhere. And this one looks pretty good. So, And if you check the inserts again, it's actually perfect. So we're going to call squaring done. Because we went from that to that. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of epoxy. This is usually what I use, Gorilla Glue. There's really no force like to pull these things out, so you don't really need a ton. I just like to put a little bit on there just to make sure it's not going to come out. Alright, so that is a 2-part epoxy, which probably going to be the last time I get to use that because it's kind of setting up on me. So I usually just put like a little bit of a dab on there, and then I'll take this. Whenever you're putting it in, I just kind of spin it a little bit, and then get your rag, anything that's excess getting pushed out, and just kind of push it down on there and keep spinning it. And there you go. It should be fine. So this is one. Did I get enough inserts out? I don't think I did. Same thing, just spin it. Get one more insert out. This is a different style of insert, but it should be fine. So like this insert's going to be a lot tighter. So like that one probably doesn't even need the epoxy, but I still, like I said, still just put it on there. Just I do. You can make your own choices. So there you go. Now they're all three on. And clean up this, and then throw this thing away. Look, I got it. Alright, so now I got little bits of arrows laying around all over on my floor. So there you go. That's these three done-ish. You can see that they're not all three the exact same height, but they're long enough for my draw length, so I'm not really all that concerned about it. There's a little bit of epoxy on there. I need to make sure I get that out. Nope, not that one. Just a little bit of epoxy there on the end. But yeah, these other inserts, these Easton, they're called CB inserts. It's just the style. They're a lot tighter in there. And I would have used them on all three of them, but like I said, these are kind of, I don't want to call them junk arrows because they are decent. They're the right weights and everything, but these are going to be used for targets of opportunity that I don't want to waste one of my good arrows with a lighted knock on there because I'm not doing that. So now all we got to do is put our nocks in, and it's in. Put our other knock in, it's in. And put our other knock in, it's in. So I do actually have enough lighted knocks to put on here, but I don't want to waste them on an arrow like this. So felt like that one was pushing out a little bit, but they're all three good. I'm trying to show you the gaps here. Try to anyway, if everything will focus. So you can see there's no gap in between the insert and the arrow itself. It's all sitting flush, and that is thanks to that F.A.S.T squaring tool right there. So that is nice. So these are done except for the fletching. And I don't know, I got fletchings. Let's see. Dang it. So I'm all out of my other fletching, I think. Yeah. Where's my other arrow? So I do use these Blazer fletchings on a lot of stuff, on most of my stuff right now. This is generally kind of what I'm running on all of my arrows that I've built lately. And it's just more of a color preference more than anything. So that's one of mine that I already built. So like I said, these two, I'm not replacing the fletching because there's really no point in it. So then they do have these Fletching Tools. And so like this one is also made by Bohning. And it has got I think it's a 3-degree helix. Yeah, 3-degree right-hand helix for it. So if you start getting into archery really big, they'll start where they shoot just a shaft out with no fletchings on there. And using high-speed cameras, they can see what way your bow likes to turn whenever it fires an arrow, and then they'll put the helix on based upon that. Like I said, I'm not doing that. So my arrows are generally pretty accurate. You know, I mean, they're pretty well where I'm putting them, but I am not worried about which way the helix is going, because I'm not shooting 150 yards, which most people don't. But I'm not even trying to shoot out to 80 yards. That's out of my comfort range, and that's something that you have to determine for yourself. So I think the longest shot I think I've ever made was 60 something yards. It was like 65 yards at a target, not at an animal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this thing in if I have enough glue. I don't know that I do, but if I've got enough glue, I'm going to go ahead and try to put these things in. So the way that this thing sits in here is is it on backwards? Did I put it on backwards? It actually knocks in here, so you need to have your knock on. But you can put your arrow in. It's not normally this dirty either. This is ridiculous. So you can see that the arrow is going to be actually down in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put trying to decide what color combo I want to. I think I'm going to do 2 oranges. So I generally do like them to be 2 of one color, 1 of the other color. That's just kind of the standard. And the point of that is that way whenever you're grabbing an arrow out, you know which way your fletchings need to be to go into your bow properly. So let's first see if this glue is even still good, because it's been sitting in the garage for a while. It's still soft. It's still flowing. Alright. So I think we're going to do this. I'm going to try to clean this thing up again just a little bit more, just to make sure that it's got a good place to make contact. Then I'm going to use some rubbing alcohol on it, just to clean the surface up a little bit more. I'm not worried about some of the white wrapping coming off or anything. Again, this is just going to be like a junker arrow for me. So, this. Just get you a little bit of alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Just clean that up a little bit. And we're going to re-knock it in there. So and the way this machine works is it's got 3 preset positions. So make sure you're on one of the preset positions before you start, because you don't want to be halfway through and then your fletchings not really line up. So, and they do give you this piece of like sticky aluminum foil, and that just keeps the glue off of there. So what you do is you're going to put this thing in here. The black one probably wasn't the best one. Make sure it's kind of flush right there, and you got it seated all the way back. Again, it's dirty. So then I like to put too much glue on it. I didn't used to, I actually do like to put too much glue on there because I had some problems with some fletchings coming off the first time I did this, but it's a live and learn thing. And I like to pull up too from the back a little bit so it really just seats that thing on there. And then you gotta hold it. Still holding. Still holding. Still holding. Alright, so hopefully that'll stay. And it did. And then if there's any, or with the squeeze out, I just lightly like wipe it off. It's not that big of a deal. Then I'm going to clock it in the next direction. Same thing. Seat it in here, push it all the way toward the back. Put too much glue on. You want to make sure that you get the glue too, just that it goes all the way up and down. Put this thing on there. This time when you squeeze from the back, you already got another fletching on there, so you got to be careful not to just find a place for your fingers to be happy where they're not pushing on that other fletching. Then you got to hold it. Then you got to hold it. But I've had better luck with actually putting pressure on here, and I've never had one come off again. Alright. We're going to call that one good, hopefully. A little bit of squeeze out, that's fine. And this glue is specifically made for this. It is for fletching itself. Put the next one in. Put way too much glue on. Actually, can get a little bit lighter on the glue this time. There's enough push out on that other one. And those other two. Find your spot. Push it on. Same thing. Be careful of the other fletchings because the glue's still a little bit wet, which it is. You can start moving those fletchings around, and then you might have an error that just you can't get it to shoot straight to save your life. Alright. I like to try to make sure too that this back is wiped off for the next time. I'm going to take this guy out. Okay, so the camera kind of cut out on me there. So we're done doing our fletchings. Not sure where it ended off at, but so like I said, the glue that I'm using is this Bohning Fletch Type Platinum, and it does have it says clamp time of 5 minutes, which means kind of hang on to it, and a full cure time of 48 hours. So make sure you wait. Don't take this thing out shooting today. You know, you want to make sure that glue gets the opportunity to completely set up for you. But in all seriousness, if you get into archery, building your own arrows can be very satisfying and a lot of fun to do. It's worth doing whenever you're messing around with archery equipment whatsoever. There's a lot of adjustability in just about everything. So I will try to put a link below to where you can figure out what your arrow length would actually be, because for each person it's going to be different. It's based upon like the length of your arms and where you hold the bow at. There's like a couple little formulas to do, which I think I did mine once and it was actually wrong. So I ended up where I knocked my arrow, drew it back, and then had my wife draw a little line on the end where I was telling her to. I was like, just go forward a little bit more, because I want the arrow itself, the tip, I want it to be out in front of my hand, just because sometimes I don't clamp my hand around my bow. My hand just kind of holds there where the bow is kind of doing its pushback, so my hand's more like that. So I don't want to let something go and it catch a hold of your hand, because it can hurt you. These can hurt you. They can cut you wide open. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this thing sitting, and it's just going to kind of sit right there where it's leaning over the edge. That way nothing else is touching the fletching. But like again, to reiterate, it's a lot of fun to do. It's worth doing. Don't be intimidated by it. When you can buy little tools like this F.A.S.T, this squaring tool, any mistake you make, you can fix it. So even this Bohning, the fletching thing, jig, it wasn't super expensive. So you can do it for cheaper. You don't have to spend a ton of money. But if you're wanting to start doing professional like shoots and stuff, obviously you're going to be doing a lot higher quality than this. But for just just a hobby shooter or a hobby hunter, they're good. I mean, I've never had an issue with any of my arrows, other than when I first wasn't waiting long enough for them to clamp up. So, like I said, don't be afraid to do it. It's a lot of fun.